I decided today that I'm going to do something a little different. We're going to do kind of the Club Junkies 2024 Most Underrated Award. So I think these are clubs that they didn't necessarily have to come out in 2024, but they were in the current line. They're part of 2024. They may be getting replaced next year. We'll just have to kind of wait and see on a lot of these. But they've been out, either got launched in 24 or they ran the whole course of 24 in terms of being available. You know, they were in the catalog in the line. These are just clubs that, like, when you go into that category and start looking at clubs, this isn't even, I don't think any of these are in like your top three. You know, when you go look at some of these, I think there are so many other clubs that are looked at before that, and I think these are probably just as good, right there with like the top 3, 5, whatever the category is. And, you know, for some players might be even better. I didn't really put anything direct to consumer on here because I don't really have access to a ton of direct to consumer stuff. Like, they don't send in a lot of product for media samples and stuff like that. I don't test a ton of direct to consumer products. So I'm going to keep it to stuff that you're going to buy pretty much in a shop from traditional companies, only because there's so much direct to consumer stuff out there that I've never hit. So we're going through and we're going to do Club Junkies 2024 Most Underrated Clubs. And I think maybe it'll become something we do every year. We'll see how people feel about it. So this one here, driver, I'm going to go Mizuno ST Max. I think this driver here, I hit it. I was extremely impressed with it. I know that, you know, it is, you know, built more for the very, very forgiving, a little bit high launching. So not necessarily the, you know, the GolfWRX crowd. But I think when you look at kind of how hot the 10K type drivers, you know, got this year, you look at this ST Max, and I think it hung with everything in terms of forgiving. If you want to look at, you know, all the big boys out there with their standard or more forgiving models, I think the ST Max was right there in terms of straightness. It was super straight, very forgiving. When I did my 3-swing challenge with it, video on it, hopefully it came across. Like, I was blown away by how straight some of the mishits and stuff like that were. But it's got a good shaping. It's a little more rounded. Oh, I got it right here. I'm going to say it's a little more rounded than maybe some other drivers. But overall, I think the fit and finish is really good. I like the kind of the black gloss with the carbon fiber. The sole, I think, is pretty cool. It's got that, that Cortex chamber on the bottom. That's really massive. But I feel like the face, a little bit shallower, but it's not too big. The overall footprint isn't massive. And I think the performance is great. I think ball speed's phenomenal, especially on the miss hits. When you do hit it solid, it goes a long, long way. It does launch a little bit higher. It does have a little bit of spin, much like a lot of these super forgiving drivers, but not near that bad. I mean, I was playing the 9.5. I had it turned up 1. And the other thing too is, like, the face didn't look crazy shut or anything like that. It still had a nice straight look to it, or square look at a dress. But overall, I think this driver was super underrated. But this driver here, I think, really, really was good. I think it was definitely held its own against, you know, the 10K stuff, the super forgiving stuff, without being crazy draw biased, without being crazy high launching and crazy high spinning. It definitely did launch a little bit higher. It did spin a little bit, but it wasn't crazy. And I think the look of it is really traditional, really classic looking. Sound and feel was good. It wasn't. It was a little on the louder side, but not wildly loud. Overall, I think it was a great performer that just nobody talks about. And for me, I think out of all the fairways, there were some really, really good ones this year. But the one for me that I think was kind of the top that nobody's talking about. Now, it hasn't been out as long, came out during the summer. And I think this going into next year is one that is for sure worth trying. But I think it is the Tour Edge Exotics C725. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit more compact, not crazy big, you know, a little bit more of a kind of a player's look to it, it fits it. You know, I love the matte carbon, the matte top. It just flows really well. You can kind of see the carbon tech on it. You know, sole has a ton, you know, 2 adjustable weights plus an adjustable hosel, so you can really dial it in. Really impressed with how well shots low on the face went. Now, this is a titanium faced club, so definitely has some heat to it. But when you hit it low on the face, which is where most people miss their 3-wood, the ball definitely goes. I think this thing here is more than forgiving for somebody who's, you know, a 10, 11, 12 handicap, and I think anything lower is definitely going to find some, you know, some big time performance out of it. Really impressed. Love the adjustability, love the sound and feel, love the performance. I mean, everything about it. I think Tour Edge did a really, really good job. And I know hybrids overall, just in general, are kind of down compared to high lofted fairways. For the most underrated, I'm going to go with the PXG Black Ops. I think the hybrid is really, really good. Again, no one plays it, but I think it's compact enough where good players look down at it. It's got a good shape. It's small. It's not, looking like a cross between a fairway wood and a hybrid. Has a smaller look to it, small footprint, a little bit deeper face. You can hit it off the tee. But overall, I think it looks really good. It's really forgiving. It's easy to hit. You hit it off the toe, heel, high, low in the face. You're still going to get a good shot out of it. But overall, I think it's a really consistent, really good hybrid that, you can use as a better player. You can use as a little bit more of a kind of a mid-handicap player. And then, for that higher handicap, they have, I believe, the XP one as well, which is a little bit bigger. 3 movable weights on the sole, except put the heavy one out in the toe, and you can basically take away a bunch of the left. And also, in the hosel, they've got the standard settings of, up or down, and then they also have the flat versions of those as well. Same thing, if you're looking for, a hybrid instead of a fairway wood, because maybe you just don't hit fairway woods well, so you're looking for a hybrid instead to kind of fit a spot in the bag, especially the top end. I think the standard Black Ops is a really good option. Utility irons are kind of interesting. Everybody's kind of got their own thoughts on utility irons, but I see more and more people playing them. But I think the most underrated one, and I talk about this one a lot, but not many people do, is the Cobra King Tech utility. This is one of the ones that I have in my bag. It kind of makes a lot of the rotation. It's got just a little bit of offset, not too much. Slightly longer blade length. The top line's fairly thin. Most utilities have a fairly thick top line, but this one is fairly thin. It's nothing too crazy. Performance-wise, with the power shell kind of L face and the hot face technology, this thing's got some distance, but it's not crazy long. This thing isn't going to be something that you hit and you just go, holy smokes, it's going forever. I can't gap it. I can't figure it out of the top into my bag. It kind of comes out as more of like a mid-trajectory, but a flatter launch than, say, the Mizuno Pro Fly High. Or like the Ping Eye crossover. This comes out a little bit flatter. And I think for players who are bigger hitters who hit it higher, hit it with more spin, you're going to be able to kind of hit this a little more flat. It's not going to get up as high as some of the others, but you're also going to kind of work it. You're going to be able to flight it high, flight it low, work it right to left. It's just going to offer you a lot of options while still giving you a little bit more ball speed. It does everything really well without doing any one thing crazy good or something like that. And then we move into irons. And this one, I think, is the same thing. There are so many options in terms of irons when you think about underrated irons. And I think the Wilson Staff Model CB. Everybody talks about the blades, and they say how beautiful they are and all that. And nobody really talks about the CB. And when you talk about CB irons, great CBs, I mean, you're talking about Mizuno, Wilson, TaylorMade's CB. There's so many really good CBs out there, Ford CBs. And the Wilson Staff model was never talked about. When you set it down, it looks fantastic. It's got a little bit of a boxier, sharper toe on it, which some people really love. I think the turf interactions on it is pretty good. It's got a decent amount of camber to the sole. I think it gets through soft conditions really, really well. And when you hit it well, the sound and feel is soft, muted, thuddy. It's just a really great CB. I got a chance to hit it out at Pinehurst. I got the chance to hit it back at home and play a round or a couple rounds with it. And honestly, really, really good. If I had a better game, I would definitely want to put those in the bag more often. And I think Wilson did a phenomenal job with that CB. And better players just need to try it, because once they do try it, I think they'll realize that the thing is really, really good. For wedges, I'm going to go with, because this one I feel like there was a little less in terms of options. I feel like the big name guys are out there. Everybody talks about them. I still think that the TaylorMade Mill Grind 4 are super underrated. Everybody talks about Vokey, Cleveland, Callaway, all those. Nobody talks about the Mill Grind 4s, or at least not enough people do. And I have been playing them, I would say, a decent amount. I've got the Tiger Woods 60, Tiger Woods 56, and they're a little more square toe than I typically like, but I know a lot of players do like that. They like the look of it. But these Mill Grind 4s are really good, and they perform really well. I think, whether you're playing out of a bunker, whether you're hitting it off a tight lie, you're going to get great spin. But it's also like predictable. Whether, if you're hitting it out of the rough, it's going to release just a little bit, a certain amount. But overall, these wedges play really, really well, and the sound and feel is greatly improved. This is a tough one because, one, there's so many smaller, like, boutique putter makers. There's so many putters out there that you can get from all these different people. But I feel like the one that no one talked about, and I feel I know why, But I think the Never Compromise reserve line, the new reserve line they did, is really, really actually good. They sound and feel really good. They're really solid. Like the Reserve 1 has a really classic kind of answer to Newport 2 type shape, a little bit more squared off, a little bit larger bumpers on there, all that. But I think it looks really good. Now, the downside to them is that they're $449, and that can turn a lot of people away, especially when it doesn't have the big milled putter brand name on it. But this thing here, I think is milled really nicely. It feels and sounds really good. I think the performance, it puts a good roll in the ball. I like the two-tone version, like the original. That kind of gives you that little bit of alignment. I think that's pretty cool. Kind of frames the ball up pretty well as well. And then the other thing too, they've got some, interchangeable weights. And then once it came out, I put rolled it a little bit. Really impressed. I think it does really well here. I think the only thing that's holding it back is the price. It's just really expensive for being a name that's not quite there yet. Now moving to ball. Again, I'm going with stuff that you can probably find in store more than not. I think the one that to me every year is kind of just underrated is the Titleist AVX. Everybody talks about Pro V1, Pro V1X, left dash, left dot, whatever it is. Nobody ever talks about AVX, and I think there's a lot of people out there that look for a lower spinning golf ball, maybe a lower flying golf ball, and nobody ever mentions AVX. And if you're looking for something, it's got a urethane cover. It's kind of in that Pro V1 family in terms of technology and all that. It is right there. And I think for a lot of bigger, higher spin players, you could find the AVX is really, really good. AVX, I think, fits more players than ever try it. People look at it and, they're looking for lower spin golf balls. They just don't try AVX. They go to other brands or whatever. But the AVX is a great low launch, low spin golf ball that goes a long way. And I think for a bigger hitter, that kind of spin around the green that gets reduced, I think, they possibly could overcome that with the amount of spin they generate anyway. But the AVX, I feel like all the time is just not, it's not promoted a whole lot. I don't feel like it's not played a whole lot. You just don't see a ton of it out there. And tech-wise, it's right up there with the other golf balls. So the final category for most underrated, we're going to go wood shaft. And you know me, I have to go wood shaft. And of course, I think the biggest one out there in terms of one that's just not played a lot that's really good is the UST Mamiya Link M40X TXPX. So the TXPX concept ones, these ones have the full length M40X material in here, but I think it's a really good shaft line. I think when you look at what's packed into it, that full M40X material, they have 3 different launches, the red, blue, black. So red's going to be the highest, then you go blue, it's more mid launch, and then black into low launch. They have something for kind of, all 3 flight differences there. But then also you have something that's really stable, really easy, really consistent. They're accurate. And they've actually got a pretty smooth feel. They're a little bit stouter than I think you think they would be, but once you hit them, you realize that they really perform really well. And if you're somebody, especially if you like that black, you're looking for something low launch, low spin, and has good feel to it, but it's really stable. That black is really solid. I really like blue and red a whole bunch. Black just launches too low for me, but blue and red perform really well. So I'm a big fan. I think these things perform really well, and I think just not enough people have tried them to see how they fit their game. So definitely a solid option if you're looking for something new out there in terms of the driver, fairway, whatever. If you're looking for a new wood shaft, that is my underrated list, the 2024 most underrated. Let me know what you think. Do you think I'm off on some, right, wrong, whatever? I would love to hear some comments. Hit me up on Instagram at Club Junkie Pod, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. What do you think about my list? And let's talk about it. See what your thoughts are on most underrated.